Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you're at. Oh, voice of God just jumped in. Okay, I guess he didn't have anything to say. He threw off my entire introduction. Welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Aljets, and joining me is Maggie.
Maggie, yes, me.
I threw off your introduction. See how that works?
Let's just start over.
I pay it forward.
Roll the opening again.
Careful, he will. I'm not doing it.
Good afternoon.
I would hope that after this long, you would be able to rattle off my introductory sentence just as well as I do.
I have my own intro, thank you, because as you know, I have hosted Collider Dailies myself
quite a few
times, so I don't need to replicate you when perfection's right here. Thanks.
I mean, here's the thing. I stand by that I have the best introduction for Collider Dailies. Mine is the best. It flows the best.
Yes.
And then there's Perry, who doesn't have an intro.
Here's a really great example of how perfect your intro is like 30 seconds ago.
Well, that's because Voice of God had to jump in and just screw everything up. Anyways, Maggie, how are you doing?
God's timing is always perfect.
He's not a wizard.
He's not Tom Bombadil?
I mean, he might be Tom. According to Magic the Gathering, Tom Bombadil is a god. So, because he had the creature type god. That's getting a little nerdy. Maggie, how are you doing?
We always get nerdy.
But that's getting like deep layers of nerdy. How are you doing? Answer my question.
Good. I was trying to decide if I wanted to make a Shrek joke at the layers, like layers of onion, but I did anyways. I'm doing good. It's Friday.
It's Easter weekend.
After an entire week of Mondays, it is finally Friday.
Oh God, this week has been just a lot of work. Are you doing anything this weekend? Anything with your family? I don't know, like what your situation. Nothing. No.
Nope.
Not even gonna like hang out. I mean, I assume you're gonna hang out. You live in
we all do live in the same house, so
fair enough. I'm going to Oregon. I'm gonna be visiting my folks. I'm pretty excited about it.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'm gonna be back Monday to run the show because Voice of God isn't gonna be around, so I have to do it.
How dare the Voice of God take a holiday?
Look at him have
I'm always around.
He is always with
except for on Monday when he won't be around. Anyways, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about X-Men 97 episode 3. We are going to take like a very short amount of time here to give our general thoughts that'll be non-spoilery. But after that, we're going to immediately jump into spoilers because honestly, guys, the episode came out on Wednesday. You've had a couple of days, so we're not going to hold back on the spoilers. But before we get into that, Maggie, give me your general thoughts. Your very, very non-spoilery basic feelings about episode 3.
I also have to give my very work appropriate opinions on this episode.
Who said it had to be work appropriate? When have you ever done work appropriate, Maggie?
Hey now, anyways, hey now, you're an all-star. No, I love this episode. This was the episode that I was the most excited to talk about out of the 3 episodes that I screened before the series dropped last week. And this episode, I think, is like the perfect example of 90s storytelling because it knows how to perfectly thread the needle on being a show that is for children, but also saucy and very clearly there to appease adults and those of us who grew up with the original show. And every aspect of this episode was just mind-blowing. It felt like there was a high after a high after a high after a high, and it just felt like it was never going to stop. And I cannot wait to see what's next. I have not seen any more episodes, so this is how far my knowledge is on the series so far, and I just am I need more. It was so good.
I will say that as someone who has read quite a few X-Men comics in the past. I'm not the biggest X-Men reader, but I've read quite a few in the past. This episode for me hit all of the best notes that I could have possibly wanted from where they went with this story. I just think that it was so much fun. Of the 3 episodes, I think this one was my favorite. It had me the most excited watching it. The character dynamics I thought were spectacular for this episode. Everything flowed really well, and everything was very powerful. I thought it was great. So yeah, overall, I just think it was a slam dunk of an episode. I don't see how they could top this episode, to be honest.
I know. And yet, from what I've heard, there are episodes ahead of us that are even better than this. Which just that, I mean, knowing that, I cannot wait.
I don't see how that is possible, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, now that you have gotten our basic general thoughts on the episode, now we are going to get into spoilers. We're going to talk about specific moments from the episode. We're going to go through it. We're going to take a look at, really deep dive into it. So if you have not watched the episode, this is where you get off. However, if you don't care about spoilers, or if you've seen the episode, then stick around. And after we finish our discussion, we'll jump into the chat. We'll get your guys' thoughts on the episode. And yeah, we'll just have a nice little discussion about it. It'll be fun as hell. So the episode opens up and it jumps in right where we left off at the end of the second episode. There is a mysterious second Jean Grey there. She has collapsed. She's unconscious on the couch, and Beast has been doing some science because he's just doing his Beast thing. And he discovers that one of the 2 genes has cells that are younger than the other one. And it's the gene that we've been following for so long is apparently a clone. Now, Maggie.
Yes.
I don't know how much you've read X-Men comics.
I know a lot, thank you.
Okay. I kind of figured that you did. I think we had talked about that before. Mm-hmm. As someone who read the comics, because I'm gonna tell you this, as someone who read the comics, I didn't actually see that coming, even though as soon as that reveal happened, I should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? What were your feelings?
I think because I went from last week's episode into this week's episode, like right off the bat, like I didn't have a pause. I didn't have a lot of time to consider what the options were because we very quickly got exactly what we now know to be, the case. And I think it was really cool. I think that was a plot line from the comics that I don't think I ever expected to see on screen.
For some weird reason, I just didn't expect them to follow the comics all
like to the letter.
Yeah. It's like beat for beat, exactly the same as the comics.
And that makes me really excited. As somebody who has had her qualms with how the MCU has handled some things where they're like, oh yeah, this is based off this comic book run, and then it's entirely not based off of that comic book run. And obviously this is not the MCU, this is just Marvel, as they've made very clear. So I think that is giving us something that we haven't had thus far, but we did have with X-Men the Animated Series, which did follow quite a few comic book runs in the stories that they told over the 5 seasons. So it's really exciting to see this, and I think this is a fun storyline to see play out. Big fan of the Goblin Queen.
You're a big fan.
Dude, the way that they
there was a tweet interaction that happened last week where someone was like, we should have like a thirst of the week or whatever.
Yes.
Goblin Queen. 100% Goblin Queen. I am here for Goblin Queen. And it's only a little bit because of my preference towards redheads. And just my general preference for Jean Grey, just in general.
Okay, Scott Summers, calm down.
I did want to be Cyclops as a kid.
I mean, it's all starting to come together. I'm seeing it now. And also, Logan is clearly in agreement with you. Can I just say, this show has been so good to me and the ships that I had as a child that I never thought I would ever see even the scrappiest crumbs of, because I know a lot of people have shared their opinions with me on social media that they don't like Logan and Jean, but I like that ship as a child, and I like that we got like a tiny crumb of like him still clearly having like unrequited feelings for her, and I was like, yes, this is why I watch the X-Men, because I like that everybody has a thing for each other. And I don't know what's going on with Logan and Morph, but that's clearly something.
I will say this episode, like I already liked Morph, but I didn't feel like the other two episodes really gave us a lot of Morph.
Yeah.
This episode not only gave us a little bit more of an insight into Morph and into Morph's previous struggles, but it just, to me, it made Morph the fun character that I wanted Morph to be.
Yes.
And Morph also was the one who brought in my favorite, like, Easter egg reference. I don't know if it's really an Easter egg, just appearance of a character, because he morphed into Ilyana Rasputin at one point, which was awesome.
I
wasn't
absolutely
expecting that.
love the way that they are using Morph to show characters that they won't get time to like fully bring into the show. Possibly. I mean, who knows what will happen in 2 and 3.
If Magic legitimately showed up, I would probably lose it.
Like, I love it. I think that's such a genius way. There was a scene Morph has with Gambit when they're looking at the log for who has the room booked, and it's like Rogue and Magneto, Rogue and Magneto, Rogue and Magneto.
Just scrolling through the schedule, like they have every day booked.
And Gambit's just there like.
So this episode, and I like, obviously I feel like the Rogue Magneto thing is going to be an ongoing thing for the entirety of the season.
I can only hope.
This episode didn't do as much with that as I kind of thought they were going to.
Yeah, which makes me think that they're going to do more in the future.
Yeah.
They're just like testing the waters right now, and it is actually hilarious to watch how much people are like, no, why are you doing this to me? And I'm sitting here like,
of course you're enjoying it. But
it was made for me, I swear to God.
Probably was. Because it very much felt like they were getting ready that, oh, there's going to be a confrontation in this episode. And then I guess it was just like one of those things where it was like, oh, a bigger problem presented itself and Gambit will deal with that later.
Yeah, Gambit's just compartmentalizing for now. And Rogue clearly still has a thing for Gambit. So like,
although we did get that very like, but this episode had like a surprising amount of body horror.
So much body horror. Yes.
Like when he gets the vision of Magneto and Rogue and
melting
like,
into each other. Yes.
They're melting together like they're shunting from the society. Like it's
Gambit's worst nightmare is my dream come true.
You want to shunt? You want to see Rogue and Magneto shunting? At what point? Whose face comes out of whose butt? Is this a reference that anybody is getting? Okay. Like there was that whole thing. There was Sunspot's mom crawling out of the TV and then like morphing into this weird monster. And it's like, which, I mean, it's reality warping, like mind bending stuff because clone Jean was messing with everybody's heads. But it was the kind of grotesque that I would not have expected to have seen on the original X-Men animated series run. Like this very much feels like this is okay in modern times, but very much would not have been okay on, 4Kids TV, like, Fox Kids or whatever back in the day whenever it was airing. But yeah, so we get that. It's revealed that Mr. Sinister is the one who cloned Jean. We knew that Mr. Sinister was going to be in the episode because we got casting information that the voice actor was coming back and that all was happening. So we knew that Mr. Sinister was going to pop up, and we kind of, assume that he's going to be the big bad for this season. It would make the most sense. I mean, it is Mr. Sinister, and he is one of their largest villains.
Yeah.
And then we get to see clone Jean fully transform into the Goblin Queen. John sweat just a little bit, and then she takes baby Nathan, and then the X-Men have to go find her.
Yes,
that's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
How did you expect Mr. Sinister to appear this early on in the season?
Yes.
Really?
Because it reminds me of some of the structure of the previous seasons of this show. They would tease the big villain early on, and then they would have a lot of other things. Yes, I am teaching class now with my pencil. And a lot of other stuff would kind of fill in those episodes, and then you'd get like the big showdown at the end. So yes, I was expecting it. I think I initially thought it would be more like episode 4, but the fact that they introduced him in episode 3, I think helps to set up the flow for the season, since it does seem like they have a lot of minor mini arcs that they have to complete before we get to that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't a 2-season villain. And then season 2 will introduce the like season 3 villain, because I think that makes sense for
why you're really thinking far ahead. You think we're gonna get that much X-Men 97?
It's supposed to have 3 seasons.
Oh, is it? No.
Yeah. And season 2 is already written, and I believe animated and possibly voice acted. So like Disney does a thing where they usually have 3 seasons of an animated show planned, and they do the first 2, and then if it gets truly renewed, then season 2 is like already in the can, and then during that time that we wait for season 2 to come out and be on screen, they're already working on season 3. That's how that Disney's been doing that. You've seen that with the Bad Batch, Visions, the Marvel What If
other shows.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I was like, what if? Yeah, so they'll usually do it in 3 seasons. So they've already talked about having 3 seasons planned, but season 2 is the only one that's finished. I was trying to remember all the stuff that they've talked about in the press and the run up. So we know for sure we're getting 2 seasons, basically.
So so they go out, they find the Goblin Queen, and they have a pretty epic fight where she just completely wrecks basically the entire team, including messing up Magneto something fierce, which I gotta say I did not expect. Although I liked the way that he was fighting her. Yes. By pulling the solder from the stained glass windows and throwing it at her.
Yeah,
that was like because
genius.
When the glass cracked, I was like, wait, he can't control glass. And then I thought about it for a second. I was like, oh, wait, that's how stained glass is put together.
Yes. Also, can we all say thank you, Madeline, for cutting up his uniform in nice little slices. Thank you, Madeline. Madeline's here for the girls.
I mean, I guess if I'm going to thirst after Madeline Pryor, you can thirst after Magneto.
Let me thirst after Magneto.
Okay, I was never gonna stop you. Jeez.
Well, you couldn't. So
your weird like villain thing that you got. Although I shouldn't say anything. I'm just going after the.
I was like, excuse me, who here is thirsting after the Goblin Queen?
She's literally the Goblin Queen. Also, can we just talk about how many like evil versions of Jean Grey there is?
There's so many.
Like,
how does it feel to be God's favorite? That you can have one favorite character and then have multiple evil versions of that character. Like, how do you feel to be chosen, John?
Pretty great. I would say she probably has as many evil versions as she has died and come back.
You're not wrong. And there's also clones of her. Like, you really lucked out being
clones.
A Jean Grey fan.
I just really like, I've always liked Jean Grey, one, because like redhead and I'm here for it. But also I just always like, I like telepaths. Like, weirdly enough, there's just something about telepathy that I've always just been drawn to as a power. One of those things where like, if I had a power, I would want it to either be teleportation or telepathy.
I just want to address a comment. We can only hope. All in the game says, so will Magneto be scarred up in the future topless scenes for continuity? First of all, love your optimism. I love that you're like, yeah, obviously he's going to be taking his shirt off in future episodes. Love your optimism. Keep that up. And we can only hope because, you know, I fully believe continuity is very important. And in animation, there's no excuses for forgetting what you did in the last episode. So
I'm just going to let that one stew for a moment. But anyways, so yeah, Jean Grey, the real Jean Grey, manages to reach out to Madeline Pryor. Yes, because that is what clone Jean decides to go by the end of the episode, Madeline Pryor. she reaches out to Madeline Pryor, convinces her that like, hey, you shouldn't be evil. Remember your son, all this sort of stuff. Which, by the way, speaking of son, she does a really good job fighting off the X-Men, considering she just had a kid like 24 hours.
She obviously goes to the same school as Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon, who can have a baby and then haul herself out of the bed to go be like, look, I created another child.
Like, considering that she like literally like a human being just came out of her, she was like moving and handling things pretty well.
It's almost like they have superpowers.
It's almost like, for the sake of fiction, we have to keep things rolling, and we can't have an episode where, you know, a plot crucial character is bedridden.
Yeah, but also let's acknowledge that throughout history, women have done a lot after birth and kids.
You are not wrong.
That's what society demands.
Anyways, so yeah, then of course Madeline Pryor and Cyclops team up to you know, knock some sense into Mr. Sinister. He flies off, but not before revealing that little baby Nathan is infected with a technovirus, which is very 90s of him. And then of course he has to be taken into the future to await a cure. And that is, of course, for those of you playing the home game, the setup for everyone's favorite Josh Brolin, Cable.
Yep.
Who, if you're listening to this and you did not know that Nathan Summers is Cable, I'm sorry to have revealed a like 35-year-old secret, but there you go.
Yeah, yes.
Now that leaves me with a question though. Does that mean now that Bishop is out for the season?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or do we think that we're going to get Cable by the end of the season?
I think we know we're getting Cable because there's a voice actor for Cable.
Well, look at that. I just remember.
And I believe it is the original Cyclops voice actor who
which is fantastic,
returning to voice Cable, which I think is great.
But if Cable's coming, do you think that Bishop is coming back with him?
I would feel like, yeah. Like, but that's just me making a guess. It also depends on like how many other characters they're introducing, what other things they're doing. Because I feel like they do have to balance like not overwhelming each episode with like, here's a dozen new characters.
I mean, I think that right now where they're at as far as the character load is pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got a pretty good main cast. I did appreciate seeing Sunspot doing Sunspotty things, filling in the Jubilee role as the newbie teenager who doesn't know what's going on. You know, your audience surrogate so that they have somebody to exposition dump to. So glad to see him. And then at the end of the episode, Madeline Pryor leaves because obviously we're not going to have two Jeans. That's just a little bit too powerful for the sake of the stakes of the entire show. Jean Grey is kind of left in a situation where like, okay, what's going to be up with her now? Because like, how long ago was she kidnapped? Was she kidnapped even before her and Scott were married? Was she kidnapped? You know, how long ago? So like, what's going to be sort of her status as far as the relationships with other characters? And then we get one final scene where we see Storm, the only time that we see her in the episode, and she meets up with an old friend of Charles Xavier who tells her that he is going to help her get back what she has lost, meaning that we will probably be seeing good old Storm back in action. Probably, I would assume, last couple of episodes. Like, yeah. I don't think that she's going to come back like next episode or anything like that. She's going to go on a hero's journey to get back her stuff, and then she'll come back to like save the day at the end.
Exactly.
She's going on a Thor journey, basically. She's Thor from Infinity War. She'll show up at the very end when things are at the most dire to kick all of the ass.
Yes. As we established last week, the most powerful.
Yes. So, and that is where episode 3 leaves us going into episode 4. Maggie, how did this episode at all affect the way that you think things are going to go for the rest of the season? Or is your predictions before the series kind of sticking the same?
I think it's sticking the same. I don't think considering I watch all 3 together in like one go, I think it raised my expectations extremely high, because if you can nail the first 3 episodes with such incredible storytelling, surprising twists and turns, and seemingly set up some really complex storylines, I'm expecting those all to play out. So I'm very excited. I think that the first 3 episodes really just blew my mind.
Oh yeah, it's as I said at the top of the show, especially this episode, I think was just brilliant. One last question before we get into talking to chat here a little bit. What was thirst stuff aside? What was your favorite part of the episode? Because we know that we know what's actually your favorite part of the episode. Outside of that.
Oh gosh. Everything with the Goblin Queen. I just really liked her character design. I liked the execution of the character. I liked the interactions with the other characters. I think, yeah, all of her stuff was probably my favorite parts of this episode. And I also really liked some of Logan's scenes with Jean.
I think my favorite thing would probably be the scene where clone Jean was sitting there with baby Nathan, like kind of like you could tell that she was very like conflicted internally. She was dealing with a lot of stuff right before Mr. Sinister started talking over the baby monitor and we got the reveal of everything that was going on. It felt like it was a very somber moment, but it was also very, very powerful moment. And I thought that it was just extremely well done on all sides. Now let's jump into chat here a little bit. Let's go through here. I'm going to scroll up and let's jump in. Before we get into the X-Men stuff, let's just real quick answer Arturo's question here. What's premiering this weekend at the theaters? Well, the big one would be Godzilla x Kong that opened today. If you're at like certain indie theaters and things of that nature, you could go see Dogman. I thought it was okay. I saw it at Fantastic Fest. It was fine. And really outside of that, a lot of small things here or there. The big one is definitely Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. So
yeah, that is the big one.
That is the big one. And of course, All in the Game called out. Rest in peace to Lou Gossett Jr., first black actor to win Best Supporting Actor Oscar and won an Emmy for his Roots performance. Yes, very much rest in peace to Lou Gossett Jr. That actually bummed me out this morning quite a bit because I remember growing up, he was like almost a near constant presence on TV in my house because like his movies just kept coming up. They would be constantly being shown. So that is a bit of a bummer. So very much our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. All right, going into the fun chats here. All in the Game says, even with 2 genes, Wolvie still doesn't have a shot. Really needs to move on. Yeah, he doesn't have a shot.
He doesn't. But Morph could look like Jean.
Okay, but that's just creepy.
It
was creepy when Mystique did it in Last Stand. It's creepy when Morph does it.
I'm just saying.
That's just
everyone comes away happy.
No, except for Morph, because then Morph's like, hey, Wolverine doesn't like me for me. He likes me for Jean. Like, no, Morph is not happy in that situation, and Morph deserves better. Morph very much deserves better. Arrow Maxwell says, aside from the comics, rewatching the original 90s series before 97 dropped, the plot line was there with Mr. Sinister and the possibility of cloning Jean Grey. So I was expecting it, and it was epic. Yeah. I thought this episode just absolutely nailed that. And as soon as I realized that that's what we were doing, I was excited. It made me so very happy to actually be seeing it. Yeah, I was here for it. And then Arrow followed that up by saying the Danger Room reservations of Rogue and Magneto felt like the first sign that the Goblin Queen was at work. That's possible. I didn't think about that. That maybe they hadn't actually reserved all that time, and that was her starting to mess with Gambit.
That's true, but also I think
it's just legitimately, yeah.
It's they're just touch training.
That sounds far dirtier than Steve says, when did you think before pregnancy did Sinister switch Jean with the clone? Are we thinking that maybe it might have happened during the original run of the show?
I mean, it could have.
So how
I mean,
far back?
if
Because here is my thought, and this is what got me thinking about it. And maybe I just wasn't like, maybe I just didn't register what she was talking about, or like something around the line. So correct me if I'm wrong. But Madeline, when she's talking to the mental image of Jean, she says, "I was the Phoenix."
yeah,
and that could just be her remembering Jean's life, or that could be her saying, "I was made before the Phoenix Saga happened on the original show," which that would mean that was a long time ago that she got taken, because the Phoenix Saga was like season 3.
yeah, I think that was season 3. I think that was introduced in the end of season 2 and then into season 3, if I recall. God, that was a long time ago, guys.
I feel like either way we're going to get more hints, if not straight up confirmation, when Sinister did take Jean. So I feel like we're going to get an answer, or at least be able to figure it out here in the not too distant future. But who knows? It could have been a really long time. It could be honestly, if it was before the Dark Phoenix Saga, that would mean that we as fans have spent far more time with Madeline Pryor than with.
Aren't you a lucky boy?
All right, now calm down. Swara Sali,
You're like trying so hard to change the subject.
I very much am. You've got me flustered. Swara, which I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, says, legit wondering now if the Phoenix will show up again.
I would love that. And yes, you said Swara, right? Yes.
I'm going to assume no, because I feel like they wouldn't, like, that would be overloading this season at the very least. If they do, I feel like it'll be in the future. But that being said, the original run of the show did such a good job with the Phoenix Force, with the Dark Phoenix Saga, that I almost don't want them to.
Maybe as this plot line continues to unfold, we'll see like flashbacks.
Oh, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Which
would be awesome.
I also would like. I want X-Men media to be able to move away from the Phoenix and not lean on it as hard as it has in the past.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, for instance, the 2 worst X-Men movies were both Dark Phoenix adaptations. Yeah. Like, including, honestly, here's my hot take. Dark Phoenix is the worst X-Men film. It is worse than X-Men Origins Wolverine. I will go out on a limb and I will say that. I hate that movie so much. It pains me. It's so bad. Maggie, you have a look on your face like you disagree with me.
I think I like all the X-Men movies simply because I didn't feel like we were ever going to get more X-Men stuff. So I like took what we got and I was grateful for it.
I mean, I appreciated it, but it was one of those things where, like, and maybe it's because I wanted to like it so much that
when things like New Mutants exists, I can't say it's like the worst.
I legitimately like New Mutants.
See, I did not like New Mutants.
I like New Mutants. Maybe it's because out of that crew, the only one that I really had any connection to as a character is Magic. And I thought that that film did Magic pretty well. I think that she's probably honestly the best one that they did for that movie. But I don't know. That's just my take on it. I wanted Dark Phoenix to be so good, and I think that's why I'm so burnt by it, because when I walked out of that movie, I was just so bummed out that I didn't like it. I don't know, but that's just me. Going back to the chat here, Arrow says, I can't remember if Storm met Forge in the 90s series, but the team did in their present time in the Iceman episode when they found out the government had another mutant team that Forge was leading. I'll have to get back to you on that because I don't quite remember. Forge is one of those characters that my brain, like, memory holes. I don't know why I can't ever remember that Forge exists.
Poor Forge.
I'm just not much of an X-Men person. Like, I've never been the biggest X-Men fan. Maggie is really bummed about that. I was more of an Avengers kid than I was an X-Men kid. All right, we're gonna move on before Maggie has an aneurysm. And finally, the last one that we're gonna be looking at here is Valid Chris says, "I'm still waiting on a Cable movie. Aren't we all? It is probably, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna be a long time coming." I feel like any of the Fox X-Men plans that they might have had with Cable are out the window.
Yeah, they're gone.
So, I mean, considering the fact that at this point, we're about 99% sure, I feel like, that we're not getting Cable in Deadpool and Wolverine. So, do with that what you will. Anyways, that's all that we have for you today. This episode went way longer than I thought it was going to.
It did.
I just don't know when to shut up. All right. Maggie, you got anything coming down the pipeline? Anything exciting that you want to plug or talk about?
Yes, next week, I believe on April 4th, I'll be dropping my interview with Tom Felton for some new things that Kinder, yes, the chocolate company, is doing. So I'm very excited about that. It was a great conversation. I had about 15 minutes talking to him. And I know, Harry Potter's not very en vogue right now, but it was really fun to talk with him about that franchise. And it was a great conversation. He was absolutely delightful.
I've heard that he's like a super cool dude to talk to.
Seriously, so nice. Really... Like, obviously, I love villains, and so big fan of Draco Malfoy as a child and adult. And so it was a weird dream come true. Like, I don't think I ever expected that I would ever talk to him. So it was fun. He was wonderful. I had a really good time with that conversation, and I look forward to sharing it with others.
So yeah, April 4th, Collider.com, Collider interviews. It is video, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Hopefully.
Okay.
There were some issues with the file, so hoping it works out.
Well, if we manage to work that out, it'll be up on the Collider Interviews YouTube channel. If not, there will be a written version of it up on Collider.com. So get over there and check that out. While you're over there, check out any of the numerous other great articles we have going up, or the fantastic videos that are being put up by yours truly, and also the rest of the talented team of video people. I'm tripping over my words here at the end. Yeah, just get over there, get yourself some information, learn you up some stuff about movies and TV and the occasional game. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, you never know. Yeah, and then we'll be back next week. Don't know the schedule, so I can't tease who's on Monday, but we will be back next week. We will talk about X-Men episode 4. So be looking forward to that whenever Maggie and I are on an episode after it comes out. We'll figure that out. But until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. If you celebrate, happy Easter. If you don't, have a fantastic rest of your weekend regardless. And we'll see you next time.